everybody, welcome back. It's Business, and it's my first ship overview since the Caesar in Christmas of 2017. Holy crap, it's been a long time. Now, I've played the ship a lot. You guys know that by watching these videos, but yeah, a lot. Like, I really mean it. That doesn't count the testing phases either, because that's around 250, 260 matches since this first started coming around. Yeah, so I feel pretty damn comfortable with the ship. I found the niche for it, and I think I have demonstrated that over and over and over again with the videos that I've posted up over the last few months with this. So the armor, we're just going to get into this right away. The armor here is pretty interesting because you gotta... First things first, let me just say this. If you're up close against an Alaska, aim for the turrets. You're going to knock them out. And I don't care if you're a Des Moines or, and actually, shit, a Des Moines can knock out like NC and Iowa, Montana turrets. It can certainly destroy these and disable them pretty consistently. But the turrets are the weak point on this, and otherwise it has a 27mm bow, which is really nice because you get to bully around the Bismarck, the other 15-inch gun battleships like the French battleships, for instance. You can get up close and personal with them and try to knock their turrets out, which does work very, very well with this ship. But the side plating here is kind of crappy, so not great, and you don't have very much in the way of torpedo protection at all. And of course, this is where the Citadel is pretty interesting too, because it's just at the waterline there. So what you're going to see me do, and this is a very, very important tactic with this ship, what you have to do in order to keep the ship alive up close is to keep it flat. You want to keep that Citadel exactly how you see it here, and basically minimize or try to have the ship settle from a turn right when somebody's shooting, so they don't have that shot into the Citadel when you're lifting the skirt up out of the water. But this might be an interesting weak point here too under the turrets. I'd have to check this by shooting at another Alaska over and over and over again in the training room, but that lower strip there might end up being a serious problem for the ship when you actually have the chance to aim for it and whatnot. But as far as the main battery is concerned, we have 305mm, which is great because you can overmatch the bows of the British cruisers, which is, yes, awesome. Love doing that. And you have a 20-second base reload. This is all unaffected, like no modules, no captain skills, nothing on this just yet. So you have a 30-second turret traverse, and your fire chance is alright at 27%. It's just not that much of a fire starter. You'll have those opportunities, of course, and the secondaries are they're not bad for a large cruiser. So in regards to the anti-air, this has been interesting because this is where, compared to the last time I played it, just before the CV rework, obviously the AA was totally different. So this seems to have much more of an emphasis on the near and the close range DPS, and actually, I'm sorry, the mid range and the close range DPS. So the curious thing is, I think it's the mid range here can dump out 10 flak clouds, flak bursts, and that's actually pretty damn good. I'm not sure really how that compares to others because I really just haven't had the time to go through and see how different this the AA is from ship to ship, but that might end up being the thing that helps this immensely, because without defensive fire, I mentioned that if you weren't running defensive fire, there was no reason to put any points into the AA before, and I need to test it now to see how it is. But maneuverability is not bad, actually. I mean, it's a large ship. The rudder shift is something I'm going to be attacking here because basically, if it can run double rudder shift, tier 8 and up, I run double rudder shift. I don't do double concealment, that sort of thing. I need my maneuverability, and that's how I roll. So I run the aiming systems mod 1, the usual suspects in the first 2 slots as well. Just want to try to help it out to some degree with its survivability and the turret survivability. So going to run double rudder shift here, not concealment. And this is basically where I found that this ship has its niche. It really comes into its own. as that bulldog that comes off that leash and just messes people up. But the much improved rudder shift, obviously, and the turret traverse kind of goes up a bit, but it's really quite good at 34 seconds, so not dissimilar to other high tier heavy armament cruisers. And yeah, your reload goes down to 17.6. But with Halsey, this is my setup. So the other thing about this I just wanted to mention real fast, I have not played this ship since they instituted the 60-second fire duration on this. So this, I'm not changing my setup in any way, shape, or form for this patch, because I want to see if I need to based off of the changes. But preventive maintenance, again, try to help with the turrets. Expert loader, which is huge, you gotta use that, regardless if you're running Halsey or not. Basics of survivability, high alert, adrenaline rush, superintendent. I run vigilance because, again, the situations I find myself in, it's a good idea for me. I just tend to be very aggressive with this, and being in situations where I'm pushing into smoke, just having any idea of where the torpedoes may be coming from, any type of benefit there is needed. So that's the way I choose to run it. But as far as the consumables are concerned, we got a 51.3 second reload on our damage control party with the various bonuses and the flags and whatnot. Run hydroacoustic with really nice torpedo detection and 5 kilometer ship detection. The radar will be getting a buff in the next patch, which is nice. So that's going up to 10 kilometers, I believe. And then with the India Delta flag, we can basically, I think it's a 10,192 health is the maximum health that we can gain back. If there was anything that I was going to say that they could change and improve with the ship as far as its survivability, it's give it an extra heal. So that may sound weird, but if there was anything that we were gonna kind of deal with here as far as, oh well, now with the increased fire duration there's this, maybe it would be a compromise, but I don't know, that would probably and very likely make it too strong. But that's still a time-based thing, and that's something that has to be understood when it comes to something like that, is that just because you have the extra heal doesn't mean you're always going to use it, but it is nice insurance to have it there. But a lot of times you just don't end up using it because it's Citadel damage and you can't really get that back. Alright, so let's move on to the gameplay here, because even though I've shown a ton of footage, probably more than anybody else in the world on this, which is really funny to think about, but when a ship works with me, it works. I decide to turn back here, and you can tell I'm completely alone. It's a full health Moskva, a full health Yamato, but the thing is, they're in my wheelhouse at this range, and I'm already about 25% down on my health, and I'm like, you know what, screw this. If the opportunity arises, I'm gonna have my AP loaded, and let's see what we can do. The Yamato already shot at me, so I'm using the island to protect myself. Moskva's broadside. Oh my god. Just getting the ship in those situations this consistently is so fun. I can't even, like, I'm sure you can hear my smile. But doing stuff like that justifies all the issues of a low DPM ship, where it can't really do much until it gets close, and it can still help, it can still do all sorts of things, don't get me wrong, but this is where it shines. And that was another situation right there where as soon as I was ready to fire, I was trying, and forgive me, I've got some cold or some crap going around, so I may sound a bit different, but I was trying to keep the Citadel flat, like basically bring the ship back to level it out, but we nailed him again for another 4 Citadels, and he's like, I don't know how the hell to kill this ship. This poor guy. So, but the thing is, with the raised Citadel like the Yamato or the Musashi you have, you can't get into these situations and expect anything good to happen. You can't. And that's the thing. If most World of Warships players do not do well close up. In fact, they do horrible close up. And the thing about it is that you can exploit that with this ship. I feel like this is what it's designed for. Is like the Minotaur. It comes into its own in that close range where like all hell's breaking loose, right? And unfortunately, these guys are all flying by the seat of their pants here, going full speed towards the rest of my team, and that's a good-looking salvo, which gets me. Yay, Confederate! But I wasn't able to really use that. So, but that was the highest. Actually, it is, as far as I'm aware, the highest damage game in the Alaska to this point. Which, yeah, that's a lot of citadels, 19 of them, and it just shaming people in close range. And no offense to them, it's just, you know, it just beating the crap out of people up close is nuts, man. I love it, and you're gonna see more of that here throughout the entire video. And I want to give props to this guy too. This Lightning here helped me out a ton. It's really the two of us that are keeping the rest of the enemy team from pushing through C here, and they they can't seem to find the way they want to push, or like the right angle of attack. And that poor guy, we were stuck here for most of the match, and I was like, okay, screw it, I gotta see if I can break out here and get something done, otherwise I'm gonna get swallowed up by these guys when they come around. And when I decided to do that, well, an enemy Seattle decided to show up as well. And yeah, if you're in a cruiser, be careful when facing the Alaska, because it definitely packs the anti-cruiser punch that you would hope that, like the consistency that a battleship you would hope would have, but it does it with some more gusto. It has, you know, far better average dispersion. You know, the shells hit really nicely. They have great angles because they're the super heavy shells. So instead of 60 degrees, they have a normalization of 67.5 degrees, which is a huge deal, and you know, comes into play in so many situations when you're up close, especially. But I wasn't able to finish off this Buffalo here, and got the rear turret on him, but only an overpen. So now I'm facing off against the Gneisenau. Now I know, I'm suspecting that the damn Z-23 is somewhere close. He's been a thorn in my side the whole damn game, right? So I have my Hydro up, and I'm expecting, of course, to run into torps here from the Gneisenau. When kind of expect this, I was hoping that I would be able to make this turn anyways, because I didn't want to get pinned too close to the island. Luckily, that's exactly when the Z-23's torp showed up, but only one set, so glad about that. Slam on the brakes, because of course he's doing the death torpedo launch, and that's when we managed to squeak by that situation, get the Z-23 spotted to the north. I don't have time to switch over to HE, so I'm just gonna have to suck it up and deal with the AP here. Hopefully I can get some hits. Kind of a weird decision on his end, but that's when the Buffalo shows back up. He's in full reverse, got the rear turret coming around. He's looking beautifully broadside there. I have no health left. Kapow! Kraken double strike. Beautiful, man. And when you can get any of these cruisers broadside, you are going to punish them. You're going to beat the crap out of them. And it's a glorious thing. It feels wonderful. And the thing is, I've done 24,000 damage salvos against the Kurfürst, Tirpitz, Bismarck, you know, Montana's, Iowa's, then throw in some Citadels on top of that against those particular ships. But this ship, if you can get the right angles, you are going to be just fine. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this does against the new upcoming Russian battleships, because if they have that high up citadel and they're going to be so desperate to stay bow forward, if you can get alongside them, if you can get that ambush, then you are in a really good spot. And not only that, but because this is a cruiser, you're not going to show up on their radar, but they'll show up on yours. So if you can get into those ambush situations, they won't know you're coming, and that is, I am so excited. Like, I'm chopping at the bit to get that situation like to happen, because I can't wait to see some of those reactions. But we'll deal with that when the time comes, of course. And that leads us to an interesting part of this video, which is how the hell do you fight against this? Well, you can certainly fight against it up close, because, I mean, the best that turret traverse is going to be able to achieve is, 26.9 seconds. I mean, that's statistically going to be the best it can do. If you can catch this where you're putting it in a turn, then that's great, because that means what you see here, how I'm turning into the left. When you're turning in, any ship is going to suffer immensely when they get that area under the paint. So basically, like lifting up the skirt of the side of the ship to expose that citadel, and that's why you want to keep it as flat as possible when you're playing it. And that's true for a lot of other ships like the Montana, the Iowa, so on and so forth. You want to try to protect the side of the ship because it doesn't have any torpedo protection either, which is actually pretty significant when you start thinking of how many of your shells shatter, or like they pass through the torpedo bulge of an enemy ship. And we're actually going to see that in this match later on, but where they count as penetrations but they don't do anything, and that's because the torpedo bulge, it triggers the fuse, or something along those lines, where it counts as a penetration but it doesn't do any actual damage because it doesn't pass through the thicker armor that's behind it. So it's kind of weird, but the ballistics that are involved with that are really interesting, and unfortunately rather problematic. So especially when you don't have those particular niceties there, like a torpedo bulge. So torpedoes are going to be a huge factor against the ship, of course, but short fuse AP from the Minotaur is nasty. Oh my god, is it disgusting. If you get caught with this ship in a situation where you can't respond back in kind with your guns to an enemy Minotaur, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. Like, I've looked down after like a salvo or two engaging a Minotaur, and I've lost like 24,000 health in like just 15-20 seconds. It's amazing how fast it racks up, and that was even when I was bow forward to it. So that's just my superstructure just getting torn apart, and you got to be really careful about those. The Henry is actually basically any French ship. If you get caught with your pants down, you're screwed. And with that, I mean any high velocity shells, especially like things like the Kronstadt. My god, the Kronstadt can punish this. You just have to catch it on its side. Otherwise, what I recommended before is to focus on taking out the turrets, to continually focus on the turrets to try to mitigate basically the reason why I try to focus turrets is because it screws up somebody's game plan. It screws up their ability to engage you in what they want to do, because now you've taken something away from them. So in a situation where, and this is actually me trying to keep my ship as level as possible, and I really screwed up this engagement. I did a poor job on this one, and I lucked out immensely that the JB did not kill me with that salvo. That was incredibly lucky. So, and by the way, here's what I was talking about when it comes to the torpedo bulges and getting shell penetrations for nothing. Notice the angle he's at? He's basically showing all of his torpedo bulge, and that's why I had so many shell pens but no real shell pen damage. So got to be careful with that when you're using this ship. You want to aim higher when somebody's turning in like that, especially when it's a battleship, because they have so much armor. You're very unlikely to be able to punch through. You still need flat angles like that to really benefit from, to give yourself the best advantage in terms of engaging other enemy ships to maximize your damage. You're still a cruiser. As much as you want to think you're a battleship, you're still a cruiser. But yeah, I've been absolutely slaughtered by focus fire, of course, and especially the high velocity shells. I think are probably the most dangerous. Like oh my god, if you get high velocity and caliber like a Republic, Oh my god, that is such a horrifying ship to try to fight in anything, actually. That's just a punishing ship. So, beyond that, though, it is very vulnerable to AP dive bombers. I want to throw that out there, too. Ask me how I know. A very unpleasant experience against a Graf Zeppelin, and actually a Midway, too. That was, oh god, that sucked. But I had very, very few encounters while I was playing this with enemy carriers, and they never really went well. So that's why, again, I mentioned that there's just no reason to bother with using anything to do with your AA unless you're running defensive AA as your module there, so, or your consumable. But don't do this. You're gonna get overmatched in a Minotaur against the ship. Just don't go broadside. At least make it challenging for them. You're not gonna beat this ship up close like that. So, but he obviously wanted to get his torps off. But double rudder for the win here. It certainly wouldn't have made this if I was running just a single rudder mod. But hey, there we go. So that was a lot of fun. But this match ended up being pretty awesome. You know, we're already down a few hundred points here, and they're in an interesting position to possibly come around our backside and pin us in and box us in here at sea. And I'm like, nah, man, I ain't about that life. So the gearing over here, I'm gonna take one shot over here because I'm partially expecting that the enemy actually is a Jutland or Lightning. Yeah, Jutland. I'm expecting him to come out. I didn't really realize that his position at the time. So go ahead and fire off my other front turret, finish off the gearing. Okay, cool. So I'm not worried about the Roma or the Kutuzov right now. I'm just focused on the Jutland because we know he still has one more rack of torps. And I actually screwed up on my usage of the consumables here. I wanted to wait until after my healing party had actually gone down to use my damage control party. So that was an itchy trigger finger there, and that may have screwed things up, but this poor guy. Sorry, dude. But yeah, we're now almost back to even in terms of the points. I'm trying to figure out. I know the Kutuzov, as the Kronstadt's pushing in, I know the Kutuzov's probably got some torps on the way at some point. I just don't know when. I'm trying to see if I can knock out the Roma instead, and I have switched over to AP, but that's when it looks like now that the Kutuzov is actually going into the torpedo run, and he's certainly got him launched off, but not fast enough. Kapow! We get the Kraken, and we're getting so close here. This is where that I screwed up by using the damage control party too soon. Yeah, I think I might have been able to get the Roma there. What a sequence that would have been. I mean, it was still a good sequence, don't get me wrong, but yeah. I wish I had that one back just to have a chance at the Roma, because it's always those little mistakes that you make that you don't really realize the ramifications until after you're dead. That you're like, ah, son of a bitch, I could have done so much more there. But yeah, like I said, still happy with the results. In closing with this ship, though, there's a lot of stuff I want to talk about, of course. Mainly the expectations that people are going to have with this. I think it's going to be a real challenge for people to overcome that. It's going to play to strengths that they may not necessarily have themselves. And by that I mean, with all the clips that I've shown you, clearly this is a ship that is much better up close than it is far away. So the Alaska is just the ship that doesn't have something like the Kronstadt shell velocity. It doesn't have the HE Alpha of the Henry, any of the Japanese ships, or hell, even the Hindenburg. The Azuma, when I start showing you footage of that, you'll see it's got immense potential with the HE at range especially. So in that regard, all of that should indicate that the Alaska does better up close, and especially like starting around the mid-range and closer. That's where it really starts to come into its own, because especially with double rudder ship, this is a ship that is actually very maneuverable, and you can boss around the 15-inch gun battleships with the 27mm bow armor. And, you know, and like in this instance here, it was a totally reckless move that I did by pushing up the flank and going after those ships without any hesitation. But they lost right after I died there. That other Musashi died. They lost 2 top tier Musashis. And for the price of my Alaska, I think that's a pretty damn good trade. So I think that a lot of people are just going to have expectations that this is going to be a ship that they can sit back and quote unquote snipe with, which is a stupid ass term in this game. I just don't think that is applicable to the ship. Does it have the potential to be able to do that? Of course, but that's circumstantial, not really anything else. And there are certainly instances where that can play to your advantage. Like this match for me, I had 11 fires, nearly 150 hits with the Alaska, which is nuts. And as you see with the detailed report here, I had 3 million potential damage. I almost had a Witherer, and I was on the flank by myself running away from enemy battleships and Kitakaze Z-23, and I was able to milk that. And I was really lucky with getting the fires and really lucky with being able to avoid some of those incoming shells that otherwise would have smashed the hell out of me. So there's certain circumstances for all these ships that really work well. Like the Azuma is great at range, whereas the Alaska is terrible at range. Whereas the Alaska is awesome up close, the Azuma is terrible. This does what no other large cruiser can do, and it feels fantastic in doing it. But you have to be very mindful of positioning, because that's what's going to get you crushed. You got to position it like a battleship and read the minimap, because that's the way to take advantage of this ship, by taking advantage of others up close. So thank you for watching today, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you back here next time. Take care. But wait, there's more! Thank you to Little White Mouse for helping me out in the training room here. After I basically completed this video, went back and tested this out with the Des Moines. I tested this out with the Minotaur too, but it couldn't penetrate the side plating there to really do anything to the 70mm lower barbette armor there. So what you're seeing here is me aiming specifically at the waterline with the Des Moines to see if we can knock out these turrets, and sure enough, that's exactly what happens. So when you disable a turret, that's basically, I think that's like, you effectively take like half the health off. But check out this rear turret. First salvo, disable, and then thankfully we don't have to wait very long for this. Second salvo, destroyed. 20,000 health remaining and stripped. Food for thought.